Again, thank you for joining us on your Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. So again, this is our first Facebook live stream. We're putting these together as we're really missing our kind of community outreach portion the last few months, and we're still wanting to interact with the community. So we figured try Facebook Live, a medium that we can still kind of reach everyone, but maybe not necessarily in person. So that being said, we did start these All Things Bike video series, which we've had a couple of them produced by our very own Mike Vergeer, who's there also on the screen with me. And essentially what we're trying to do is, right now as the summer is it's getting warm outside, great weather. It's a great time to go explore your community, your neighborhood, by bike. So I think we've seen a lot more folks in our community in the Rogue Valley and across the country, get active using bikes during this time. Again, it's a great way to explore your community and a great way to get around generally. So today we have Mike Vergeer, or Mike on a Bike. He is our resident gearhead, bike mechanic, bike enthusiast, and also bike programs manager here at RVTD. He's also the manager of our Pedals for Patriots program, which if you guys may be familiar, it's part of our Go Vets program. Essentially, we've been having it for the last 3 years or so, where we get donated bikes from the community, from folks like you all who donate them to us. We fix them with the help of Mike, refurbish them, and then donate them to veterans in need here in the Rogue Valley. Throughout the course of the program over the last 2.5, 3 years, we've given out, what do you say, Mike? Well over 100 bikes, probably.
Yep. I've been here with you guys for about a year. And just in the time that I've been here, we've handed out over 60. And in the 3 years the program's been around, over 100.
Yeah, so it's been a really great partnership with different organizations throughout the Rogue Valley. We get a lot of bikes donated by individuals. So if you have a bike in the garage, you're maybe wanting to upgrade to a new bike, or don't want to put in time to fix, we will gladly take those bikes. So you can get our contact information either by direct messaging us on Facebook, or also going to our website, rvt.org/govets, where you can find Mike's contact information or my contact information as well. We also partner with local police departments to donate bikes to us, where we refurbish them again and donate them to veterans. Right now, we have our bike shop set up over at the VA SORCC. We have had to kind of step away the last few months just due to the lockdown over there, but we really appreciate them providing us a space to build these bikes. And again, that's what a large portion of what Mike does is get those bikes ready to go. So today we're going to be talking and being able to learn from Mike kind of how to get your bike in working condition or get it ready for summer riding, so you can go out and explore your neighborhood. First up, I did want to talk about a challenge that we got going on. So starting just 2 days ago, or yesterday actually, July 1st, we started our July Bike There Challenge. So even though we weren't able to have a regular May Bike Month activities, we are doing a virtual challenge throughout the entire month of July. All you have to do is log your bike trips on getthereoregon.org. That's the statewide trip logging, trip planning, carpool matching tool. So we use it for our Get There Challenge, our May Bike Month. Free to use, create your free profile, log any of your bike trips throughout the month of July, and be entered to win some great prizes. So grand prize, we have a $100 Cycle Sport gift card. You have to log at least 10 trips throughout the month to qualify for that. We also have two $50 RA gift cards. You have to log at least 5 trips to get those. And then we're even doing smaller prizes. So if you log 1 or 2 trips, you'll be entered to win one of 15 $5 Dutch Bros gift cards. So a lot of chances to win. It's something you do on your own, and then when you have some time, log those trips into Get There Oregon. We have more information again on Facebook and our website. So I'll go ahead and get started. So Mike, Thanks for joining us. I see you're in your shop. You got your bike ready. You got your helmet on, so you're ready to go.
Yeah, I guess I don't need my helmet for this event.
Always prepared though.
That's right. I am going to be riding right after this. So.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, welcome. We're in the inside of a cabinet and furniture making wood shop in beautiful Phoenix, Oregon, and I got my favorite bike here with me.
Awesome. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you do at the Pedals for Patriots program over at the VA normally?
Sure. You covered a lot of it. Basically, we try, anybody who wants to ride, we try to help them out. So there's a lot of residents there for treatment programs at the VA to whom we loan a fleet of bicycles that RVTD secured a little over a year ago. So that's a big part of what I do, but also for veterans who are residents throughout the Rogue Valley, if they need wheels and they hear about our program, I try to hook them up with a free bike. Like you mentioned, we're dependent on the donations of bicycles from the community. So if any of you out there on the internet are watching right now and have a bike available for our program, I'd be happy to go and pick it up or have you bring it over to the shop, and we will give it new life. These veterans are super thankful to be getting a free set of wheels, and be happy to take any donations you might have.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. So do you have questions? Again, I see we've got some folks on the live stream. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them on here, and I can get them and ask them to Mike. I did get some questions ready beforehand from folks on Facebook and through email. And I know the big one that a lot of people are asking, as I said, there's more people riding bikes now than in recent memory. I think just trying to get out, get active, explore their community. So Mike, what advice would you give somebody that maybe has a bike or a couple bikes in their garage, and they've been collecting dust the last couple of years, they haven't been riding them, but they want to get out and start being active and use their bike? What would you look for to get that bike in working order?
Yeah, well, the good news, a bicycle is a fairly simple, efficient machine. And even if that thing is decades old and been sitting in the garage, there's a pretty good chance with just a little bit of maintenance that it'll be good to go. So some of the first things you got to look for if that bike has really been sitting around not being used for a long, long time is, if it's been outside, it may be a bit rusty. So, you definitely want to check the major bearing systems first to make sure these aren't seized up. Things like the headset that allows you to spin the wheel. The axles themselves have bearings in them that can get seized with rust. The crankset here in the bottom bracket. So that would be the first thing to check. And if you have problems moving those basic bearing systems, that might be a little bit of a large repair. That's not very quick repair for you. Other things you might want to check are definitely the tires. Now, tires, of course, are made from rubber and they weather. They get old. Even a very well-made tire, I mean, they only last so many years. So if you've got a bike that's been sitting around for a while, definitely check not just the tread in the middle, but also the sidewall here, and look for damage. You can often see some cracking, and if you go and pull out the pump and then inflate those things to whatever the recommended pressure is that here written on the sidewall, you'll be able to see if there's any bulging or cracking or any like bulbous protrusions. In that case, you're going to need to replace tires before you're ready to ride. But so we've got the bearing systems. You're going to check and see if the tires hold air and they're not too terribly cracked. The other thing you might check too is if, I have the benefit of a nice rack here, but if you lift the rear wheel and spin the pedal backwards and forwards like this, and just see if there's any kinks that might need to be manually worked out in the chain. Those would be the first things I'd look for when pulling an old bike out and trying to get it ready to ride.
Perfect. I know we did a video on this really recently. One of our first videos we did for the All Things Bike series, which was the ABC Quick Check. I think you kind of covered it a little bit, but what is the ABC Quick Check? ABC,
it's just a simple mnemonic device to help you remember the basic systems on the bike, and it'll help you be sure that you're safe to ride with every ride. A stands for air. Again, we're checking the tires, seeing if the tubes hold air. B stands for brakes. I'd mentioned that, rubber falls apart and degrades over time. You want to check, especially if you have rim brakes, which is true for most of you out there, that you might need to replace these brake pads. That's like a $5 or $10 replacement if those are old and brittle. C stands for chain, cassette, crank. These are all parts of the drivetrain. And then quick, ABC quick check. Quick also is going to remind you to check, for instance, these wheels are hold on to my bicycle by what are called quick releases. And occasionally I'll check them to make sure that they're good and fastened.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike. So a question I guess we get a lot is, or that, I've even asked is, when do I know I need new tires? Obviously I know if I'm getting a lot of flats, I might be, indicative of something, but what
Right.
other signs would you say?
Well, the main thing is damage to the sidewall.
Mm-hmm.
So I covered this just a little bit a minute ago, but if you pump this thing up to the recommended inflation level, and you'll be able to see if, for instance, this is a skin wall sidewall, and it's quite easy to see if there's been some damage, for instance. You can see some cracking there, and that's not going to be safe because, if you're, for instance, if you're just going straight and slow down a neighborhood street, you're not likely to have a problem with that tire. But if, God forbid, you're in an emergency handling situation where you really need the bike to quickly do what you want it to do, braking and turning or something like that, you don't want that sidewall to fail on you. So that's really the first thing to check. Again, when you inflate it up to the recommended inflation pressure, you'll see if there's anything protruding. Give that thing a spin, and you can easily see if something's sticking out kind of cattywampus. Might be a good time to replace your tires.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike. So again, I think we're seeing more people probably get on the greenway and ride their bikes. One of the things that I've come across, and I know others have come across, is sometimes there's these little thorns or goat heads, I believe they're called. They grow on the path along the greenway. And I think, somebody gets those, maybe somebody that's new to riding, they get a couple of those. It can be really discouraging.
Totally.
What's something I could do to prevent that from happening so it's not such a major pain?
Great question. The first thing I'd say is stay away from the edges. I mean, the greenway, which you'd mentioned, is 10, 12 feet wide or something. As long as there's nobody, passing you at that time, ride closer to the middle. There'll be less likely to be goat heads or other thorns that are going to give you a puncture. You got to keep your eyes out whenever you're riding, like for instance, on the shoulder of a road or in the greenway. I mean, you can see some hazards. I mean, goat heads happen to be very, very small and they're difficult to see. So the other thing you can do besides keeping your eye out and avoiding the hazards in the first place is, sometimes a new set of rubber, some new tires, there's a little bit of you get what you pay for with a brand new set of tires, particularly if you invest a little bit more money into something with a Kevlar belt, or a lot of different brands will offer different kind of gimmicky, like flat protection systems or something like that, but they actually work. They seem to keep you from getting flats quite often.
I've seen this thing called slime in the storage. What is that?
Well, slime's not so good at keeping you from getting a flat, but it does allow you to keep riding quickly afterwards. It's a very quick way to reinflate and seal that little puncture in your tire. So some people swear by that stuff. I don't love it. I've gotten quite good over the years at quickly repairing a punctured tube. It takes me maybe 5 or 7 minutes before I've got that thing repaired and reinflated and back on the road. And so that works for me. Slime is a product that some people really like. The other thing I should mention is there's another product. I don't have any particular brand name or anything like that, but they're called tire liners. And it's actually like a little synthetic material, some sort of plastic, poly something that actually goes in between your tube and the tire. And it's just a physical barrier that will keep a lot of thorns from getting through that tire and all the way through the tube to make the puncture.
So following this story I created of getting my bike out of the garage and getting it ready for summer riding or for riding around town. So going over the ABC quick check, what if I find out that it's not, it's maybe what I need to do to get it back in working order is a little bit more than what I can handle. I
Right.
guess how do you decide that, maybe it's time to look for a new bike, or start looking for something else?
Well, I guess it depends on, depends on your budget, depends on how much you have invested in your current bike. We are blessed here in the Rogue Valley to have quite a few bike shops. I mean, in a pretty good ratio of bike shops per capita too. We have quite a few excellent bike shops with very good mechanics that will help you to assess or, just how badly what kind of repairs your bike needs. And they certainly can take care of all of those. There's also, I'm kind of a DIY type guy, and I like to pull out a YouTube video when I can't figure something out and see if I can't figure it out myself. But to get back to your question, which was about how do I know if I need to buy a new bicycle? You gotta, the main thing is you gotta love your bike, and depending on, if after you pay to have it fixed, you feel that you're not going to love your bike. I mean, that's what I tell people all the time. You got to love your bike, and that's how you know if you need a new bicycle or not. A lot of bikes are worth repairing. It doesn't need to be an expensive bike to be worth repairing. Any bike that cost over $200 or $300 when it was new is a bike that ought to, with just a little bit of maintenance, last for decades. Did I get to your question, Adam?
Yeah, I think you did. So going along that, and I know from being at the shop and helping you out a little bit, and kind of goes along with you saying you get what you pay for, but I guess, when you go into one of the department stores, you often see these really nice, shiny, brand new bikes, and they can be significantly less expensive than something you'd see at a bike store.
Right.
I guess what are the drawbacks there? If you were giving somebody advice on what, if they're wanting to get a new bike or a newer bike to them, what would you tell them?
First of all, yeah, I can see why that's tempting. It's shiny, it's new. And I also want to say that there's nothing wrong with setting a budget of $150, $200 for your new bicycle. That said, if that is your budget, if your budget is less than, let's say, I'm going to say $350, if your budget for a new bike for yourself is less than $350, I'd encourage you to look into a used bicycle. They're just, those department store bikes for $150, $179 or whatever they cost. They're just not made all that well. They're made with parts that are not easy to adjust. They're easier to break than adjust. So I really do discourage somebody if you've got money to get new wheels for yourself, to please look into a used bicycle, unless you're going to spend over, again, there's that threshold of around, $300, $400, above which you're going to get a very high quality bicycle from a local bike shop. We see it all the time. We get donations of these department store bikes that were $120, $150, $170 new. And unfortunately, the very highest use of these bikes, after they're just a few years old, they still look pretty good, but they're impossible to fix. They have parts that break and that can't, and they don't sell even replacement parts for these bicycles. They're riveted together rather than screwed together, for instance. Yeah. And often the highest use for these bikes is scrap metal. I mean, they melt them and they recycle the metal.
I know that was something surprising to me when I was in the shop and you were showing me some of the metals they're using, or alloys, or whatever it is. It was very soft. You couldn't even get a screw off without it kind of busting open. So, and one of the things that I like about bikes and bicycling is it can be really accessible to folks. Again, you don't need to spend, $3,000 on a new brand new road bike or whatever. There's a lot of great options on, secondary markets, or, bikes that are really well, and I think it makes your riding experience a lot better. I know for me, when I went to college, my parents got me a bicycle. It was, brand new. It's something I chose, department store bike. I got like the big mountain bike with, 50 different suspension things on there. And I rode that around town, which was fine. It ended up getting stolen because I didn't have a U-lock. Use old, cheap lock. But after that, I did end up getting a used bike from another college student, which was you know, a little more higher end, but I only paid like 75 bucks for it.
Right.
And you just
Blessing in disguise.
the better components. It was easier to pedal. I was able to go faster uphill, and it was just an easier experience.
And did you enjoy your riding more?
Absolutely, that was something
Yeah.
that kind of got me more into cycling. It was easier to get around. You know, it was more fun and more effective.
Now you're going to need a bit of luck if with a $75 budget to get a nice bike that's
Yeah.
worth repairing year after year, but you found one. And if you've got even 150 bucks to spend, I highly recommend looking at Craigslist, looking at Facebook Marketplace. Hopefully the Ashland Bike Swap will be back on next April. Unfortunately, it had to be canceled due to the pandemic this year. These are great local places to find a great bargain on a used bicycle.
Absolutely. And then one of the, I think the benefits too is if you are able or, you know, able to go to a bike shop and get a bike from there is they'll actually do fittings for you. So they, you know, if they'll make sure you're on a bike that fits you and fits your body. And again, it's easier to ride. So it's, I guess, a benefit from going to one of the local bike shops here in the Valley.
Totally. Yeah, that would be you know, that's ideal. Going to the local bike shop, getting a bike that's tailored just to the kind of riding you want to do, tailored to your budget, tailored to your size. That's great. I was recommending these other, you know, avenues for used bicycles only if you're, you know, if your budget is, let's say $200 or less.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of those bikes, I know there's I'm starting to see a lot more, I believe, disc brakes and, you know, more and more in bikes. What are the different types of brakes and what are the benefits? Or disc brakes, is that something, is it better? Is that something I should look into getting?
You know, you're going to hear different things from different people, and I'll try to give you some information that will help you make a decision. Basically, three kinds of brakes. There's disc brakes, there are what are called rim brakes, and there's several different kinds of rim brakes. So basically, I've got two rubber pads being squeezed against the rim to stop it. And then there, you know, you might remember, maybe it's been a few decades for you, but we had coaster brakes too, or you pedal backwards. Now, I definitely, for greater stopping power and control, I recommend either rim brakes or disc brakes. The coaster brakes were cool when you were going 10 miles an hour or less and not anywhere near any traffic. But, you know, definitely you're going to want the control that disc brakes or rim brakes give you. Now, that being said, there are some important differences between them. I happen to prefer rim brakes in part because I'll admit I'm very familiar with them. I've been using them for decades. But also they definitely have some distinct advantages. They're really easy to adjust. They're inexpensive. They're available everywhere in case you break a part or need to replace a part. And for me, this is important that they're very lightweight. So those are some advantages of rim brakes. And I particularly like, I don't know how well you can see it from where you're sitting. These are called V brakes. It's like a linear pull V brake, a cantilever action that they're just bomb proof and very easy to adjust. Disc brakes, they do have some advantages. They're definitely cooler, but they're also, you can better modulate. Like you can have very, very precise control. If you want to brake just like a little bit or a lot or a medium amount, you have a lot of control of what's called modulation of the braking power. And that I think is really the chief advantage of disc brakes. That being said, I'm not crazy about them because they squeak a lot. And when a rotor, the brake rotor, if it bends, it can be difficult to repair just perfectly.
Yeah. And it could be a spendy repair too, right?
Totally. Yeah, you need some specialized tools to do it.
Yeah.
Or you know, or a trip to the local bike shop, which is going to cost you a chunk of change.
See, here's a question I had for you earlier. So, if my chain keeps slipping on my bike, what is that indicating? What can I do to help, I guess, prevent that, or something that's to tell me something that may be wrong with my bike?
Yeah, well, that's not good. You know, it's definitely something wrong. Hopefully, it's just a minor adjustment. I'm going to presume, for the purposes of this question, that you're talking about a chain on a geared bicycle and not a single speed bicycle. And basically, you know, most geared bicycles have what are called derailleurs one on the rear, one on the front. And these are controlled, of course, with levers of the handlebars, which actuate the motion of cables, okay? And these cables, they're made out of steel and they stretch over time. So there's not necessarily anything wrong with your bicycle if you have, your gears start making noise or your chain falls off. A lot of times it's just a relatively simple adjustment because, as I said, these cables stretch and there's a couple of different ways. I'm not going to get way into it right here, but there's a couple of different ways that you can loosen things up and pull those cables taut again, and then, crank them down and secure them again. There's also these things called barrel adjusters. They're typically at each shifter. There's often sometimes a barrel adjuster. I've got one here on my bicycle right here at the rear derailleur, which lets you fine tune. You can even do it on the fly as you're riding. You can effectively stretch or tighten that cable just a little bit, and often it will solve whatever noise problem or chain falling offline problem that you were having. Now, again, I didn't get into it a whole lot of technical information there. That could be the sort of problem that where you'd need to take your bicycle to a local bike shop. If you do have a bit of do-it-yourself enthusiasm and want to give it a shot, you can adjust the barrel adjusters just a little bit. Maybe try it clockwise, a quarter turn, a half turn. If that doesn't seem to make the problem any better, just back up that quarter turn, a half turn, and try it in the other direction. The other thing you might check out is on YouTube, there's a whole lot of really good instructional videos. And in particular, I like to recommend those made by Park Tools. Our tools at the VA and that I use with my RVTD bike programs, they all come from Park Tools, and they make an excellent video series. If you just go into YouTube and type in Park Tools derailleur adjustment, for instance, that could be 5 minutes very well spent where you'd learn a lot about how your derailleurs work.
Perfect. So we do have a question from the audience or somebody watching saying, so I have a spoke on the inside of one of my wheels that keeps popping every tube I install. What do you recommend as a fix for this problem?
A spoke is popping the tube. Yeah, that's not supposed to happen. What I would try is just a physical barrier. I don't know if there's I mentioned rim strips earlier fitting between the tube and the tire to prevent punctures. You might take something like a rim strip, just like a little thin layer of poly, and just, with some duct tape, just put it over the little spoke nipples that are coming into contact with your tube. That ought to stop it. That's the first thing I'd try anyway.
Yeah, perfect. And we were just talking about the chain a second ago. And I know oiling your chain is important. And I know what I used to do as a kid is I used to, get the old WD-40 from my dad's shop and spray the chain down so it could get ready for riding. Is that the correct approach, or do you have thoughts on that?
I'm glad you brought that up, because lubing your chain is very important, but spraying WD-40 on your chain is not the same as oiling your chain. In fact, WD-40 is kind of like the anti-grease. It's very good stuff. I swear by it. I use it all the time. I don't bring it near my chain very often, because what WD-40 is really good at is degreasing. It cleans things very well, after which you should apply some sort of grease or proper lubricant. So I don't often use WD-40 near my bicycle. As long as your chain is already decently clean, you might, for instance, you might use some WD-40 to clean it or to help you scrape off some rust or something like that. But once your chain is decently clean, you should be using a bike lube, something that's a little more viscous. This is probably the most popular product out there. This stuff is called Tri-Flow, but there are a number of anything that's marketed and labeled as a bicycle chain lubricant ought to work.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I do that, I probably lube my chain a little less often in the summer. I happen to live on a dirt road. And so, if I lube my chain too often, I'm collecting a whole bunch of dust and mucking up my chain. I lube it more often in the winter when it's getting wet. But I probably lube my chain, I don't know, at least once a month in the winter.
Yeah. So we were talking about, I guess, my experience that when I got a department store bike, I got the one that it definitely looked the coolest because it had like suspension in places I didn't even know you had suspension.
Right.
The question is, do I need to have suspension on my bike?
It depends on where you want to ride, right? If you're going over big technical terrain and rocks and boulders and ruts and gullies, and absolutely. I mean, if you talk to any mountain biking enthusiast, they will never go back to a no suspension bike probably. That said, if you're not often riding through big technical terrain off-road, there are some reasons why I like to avoid it. You see, for instance, on this bicycle, I don't have any suspension. It's heavy. It's got a bunch of moving parts that can break. It kind of like squishes up your steering a little bit. There's so many moving parts in between the stanchions and the tubes that it's just a little less responsive in an emergency handling situation. So, to each their own. If you're not mountain biking often, probably you're probably best on a bike without suspension.
Yeah. So now that we've got the July Bike There challenge going right now, one of the things that I put on the website and Facebook event posts is, right now is a good time to, with the weather being fantastic like it is in the summers here in the Rogue Valley. Right now is a good time to plan your route over to work, or to your local grocery store, or to your school. But I guess specifically for bike commuting, what sort of advice or things should I bring if I'm considering, making biking a regular part of my transportation choices?
Right. Well, you don't need much. If you've got a nice backpack to fit your groceries in, or your change of clothes if you're taking it to work, I mean, that'll work. You don't really need to make major modifications to your bicycle to turn it into a commuter. Now, that said, a little bit of money and effort will make your commute a bit more comfortable. I don't like wearing a backpack, particularly in July in the Rogue Valley. I don't like wearing a backpack when I go on a long ride because I get all sweaty and wet, and then so I always outfit my bicycles. Here you can see I've got an aluminum rear rack, and I've got also, these are called panniers or panniers. Super easy to take on and off. This one happens to be waterproof. So, I can go 24/7, 365 with, 30 pounds of groceries on this bicycle with 2 panniers quite easily. Other things you could do to make your commute more comfortable. I don't know if you can see there, but I've got fenders front and rear on this bicycle. I've definitely always got, I'm a big fan of lights that mount to your helmet. So this one's got front and back here on the helmet, which allows me, even if my bicycle's pointed straight, I can look over at the skunk that's about to cross in front of me while I'm riding. That's pretty cool. Other things that make this bicycle particularly well suited for commuting include, here I've got another little bag where I don't have to call my wife if I get into trouble on the side of the road. I've got my lock with me. This is not a lock that I would recommend to people who want to lock their bicycle for more than 5 minutes outside the post office, but there it is. I've also carried with me at all times a pump, a patch kit, and some tire levers. And with these 3 little things, what is this, like 8 ounces of stuff that I carry with me? I can be up and riding, 5 or 10 minutes after I get a puncture.
And I think
I ride a lot.
Those things are especially important if you get somebody new that's bike commuting and they get a flat, and if they're not prepared to get that could be a really bad, ride to work that morning.
Totally.
So it's something I know it's always good to let folks know. It's a couple bucks, not adding a lot of weight, but it really provides you with a little bit of insurance just in case you are in the greenway and you do run over a thorn or something.
And it is, there's no doubt about it, it's super discouraging to get a flat tire, especially if you're not really confident at repairing it yourself. That which reminds me that another one of our videos, rvtda.org/go-by-bike, you'll find a video that we made about we'll teach you how to fix your own flat. But yeah, super discouraging to get a flat. I just want to let people out there know that, I ride a lot. I ride like thousands of miles a year. And my tires, I don't know, they're not the very cheapest tires, but they only cost me, I think they were 25, 28 bucks a piece or something. And they have a little Kevlar belt and a nominal bit of anti-flat protection. I get a flat less than once a year. So your mileage may vary.
Yeah. So we have a question from RVTD. What if your bike doesn't have fenders? Can you buy those anywhere?
Sure. Definitely have them at your local bike shop. I live in Ashland, and there's a used sporting goods store there, Getting Gear. You can buy them on eBay. You can buy them on Amazon. You probably can find fenders also at a department store like Walmart or something like that. I'm not sure about that. But a set of fenders like this, these probably cost me about 15, 20 bucks.
Perfect. And I know one of the things that we recommend when we're talking to folks that are new or interested in bike commuting is, you may not necessarily want to take the same route to work or to school or to the grocery store that you would driving. What are you looking for when you're planning your trip by bike to a destination?
I'd say the first two things I'm looking for when I'm planning a route is, number one, I want to go where the cars are moving relatively slowly. I don't, even if there's a bike lane or a nice separated bike facility, I don't feel very comfortable being close to cars that are going 35, God forbid, 45, 50 miles an hour. I do it sometimes when I got to do it, but again, when given the choice, I'm looking for the sleepier neighborhood streets. And the second thing I look for, I'll often use Google. I've got an app on my phone, or I go on my laptop, maps.google.com, and I will, type in an origin and a destination and have them map it out for me. There's a little tab in the upper left corner that lets you choose going by bicycle, and it's not perfect. A lot of times you get directions from apps, they're not perfect, but it may alert you to some route choices that you weren't previously thinking of. Like for instance, in the Rogue Valley, if you go maps.google.com and choose an origin and destination, it will show you a light up in green, actually, all the, the Bear Creek Greenway and also the other bike facilities in our cities throughout the valley. For instance, those that have bike lanes.
Yeah, and it will add specifically, from RVTD's perspective, you don't have to choose between a bike and a bus. You could do both. Especially if you have a longer commute, or let's say you're going from Medford to Ashland or Central Point to Phoenix, or somewhere throughout the valley where it may be a longer bike commute that you might be interested in. You can take your bike, on the bus. We have a bike rack on the front of all of our buses that fits up to 3 bikes. So you could do partial trips there. You don't have to choose between one or the other. You really can do both if that's something you want to do. I know several people that will bike from Ashland to Medford. It's slightly downhill. It's a little bit easier going that direction. And then after work, they'll take the bus over to Ashland or part of the way back, and just it'll make it easier, and it provides folks with more options that do want to try bike commuting.
That's a great suggestion, Adam. Something else you'll figure out very quickly if you bicycle around the Rogue Valley, if you need to ride from Medford to Ashland in the late afternoon when a lot of people finish their workday, a lot of times there's a nasty headwind too. So I do that sometimes, the commute from Ashland to Medford and back, and I'll do just that. I'll ride out in the morning when it's relatively cool and not very windy, and then I'll take the bus back and stay out of the heat and the wind.
Perfect. So I know there's something.
What else you got?
Something, as Oregonians, we know this. It's plastered on the freeways. You go down there in big kind of letters, and you can get heavy fines for doing it, which is driving and texting. You should never do it. But I occasionally see some people biking and texting. So, Mike, what are your thoughts on biking and texting?
I mean, just because you can do it doesn't mean it's a good idea. Is it illegal in the state of Oregon, Adam?
A bike's a vehicle, so I'd have to double check, but probably
What?
assume that it's probably is.
I'll say this: if it's not illegal, it should be, because it's definitely very unsafe. It's just about as smart as, when you're on your bicycle, you're sharing the roads, you're sharing them with these, 3, 4, 5,000 pound motor vehicles. It's just a terrible idea. And even if you're on the greenway, people sometimes have a tendency to kind of let down their guard when they're on the greenway because there aren't cars around. But there's definitely, like, some opportunities to get in a wreck and to get in a collision. So, whenever you're on your bicycle, I recommend not only, I used to turn my phone on silent, and then I would feel that thing buzzing in my pocket and I'd want to check it out on the ride. Just resist the temptation, turn the thing off. And then when you get to your destination, I'm sure it's not that important that you get it right away. Please put the phone away.
And for no other reason, just enjoy your bike ride. It's really nice
Totally.
to ride a bike. You don't need to be texting. Wait till you get home for that. So other things, I know it's summer right now. We got really great weather. But what about bike commuting in the winter time? What sort of thing do you think I should be looking at getting?
I hit the main one, and that's fenders. Because if you don't have a fender, my rack sort of acts as a little bit of a fender too. But if you don't have a fender and you're going on a wet road, you'll get what's called this rooster tail, and you'll get a big spray right up your back. So definitely a fender is a good idea. I've got a waterproof pannier. I've got a change of clothes when I get to work because my employers are cool enough to have a little spot for me to change my clothes. The other thing I do, and I do this year round, but particularly in winter, is I'm dressing in layers. So rather than having a huge parka, like the sort of thing I might wear if I were to walk outside a long distance, I typically wearing a couple of layers so that I can strip one off at a time, and including an outer shell that might get a little bit of water or some mud on it, and then I don't have to show up to work in a muddy shirt. So pannier, fender, dress in layers. What else have we got? I think that'll get you where you need to go with our mild winters here in the Rogue Valley.
Perfect.
In winter also, it may be a little bit, it may be a good idea to have a nice bite in your tire tread. A lot of road bikers, particularly when you have good weather, they're just completely slick. But in winter, it can be nice to have some grooves or channels in the tread of your tire to throw some water out to the side and have good purchase, good contact with the road. You don't want to have bald tires in the winter.
Perfect. We're actually getting close to the end of our hour. That went fast. I know one of the things we were worried about is we weren't going to have enough to talk about, but it looks like we did
Cool.
pretty good. So any final thoughts you want to add?
This is my role with RVTD, and it's my greater role in life. It's like I'm just trying to help more people choose their bicycle more often. So any of you are out there on the internet right now watching this, give me a call, give me an email, find me on the RVTD website or with a message on the Facebook page, and I am happy to help you solve whatever your bike problem may be. Like I said, I'm just trying to help people choose their bicycles more often. I get a lot of joy from it. I got a lot of reasons that motivate me to bicycle, and I just want to share it.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike. Again, everyone that joined us, I want to thank you for taking some time and chatting with us today. This was our first Facebook live stream. I'm pretty happy the way it went. I'd like to do a few more of these. I'm sure we'll get Mike on for another one here in a couple of weeks.
I'm down.
Maybe get some other things. Again, please visit our website, rvtd.org/go-by-bike. We've been creating some good bike video content that has a mic on there, going everywhere from the ABC Quick Check to a few different videos. And if you have any video ideas or specific questions, please again send us an email, give us a call, or comment on our Facebook. Always do that. We're happy to answer your questions and take your questions. So folks that are just joining us and didn't hear the first kind of part of our our Facebook live stream, there is a really great challenge going on right now, the July Bike There Challenge. So any bike trip you log, throughout the month of July. We'll enter you to get some really great prizes. So we have everything from $100 Cycle Sport gift cards to $50 REI gift cards. You just got to log your bike trips at gettthereoregon.org. Again, that's gettthereoregon.org, which is the statewide trip planning, trip logging tool, and it'll help you get around. So as far as what's next, we do have another Facebook Live scheduled a couple weeks from now on Thursday, July 16th, same time, 5:30 to 6. We're going to have a interview with Mike Bowman, which is RVT's travel trainer and bike or education's manager. He does the Gus Rides Bus program throughout the schools here in the Rogue Valley. He also does all the travel training programs that we offer here at districts. If you have any bus or transit related questions, have them ready, and we'll be able to ask Mike those questions again on July 16th. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. This was fun. It was a quick 45, 50 minutes. And thanks, Mike, for
yeah, my pleasure.
All right.
I hope to hear from y'all.
Yeah. See you, everybody. Let's give it a second. Okay, it's finished.
They're off?
Yeah.
F-bombs.
Wait, let me turn this off.